In addition to the money tied up in SCM, businesses also care deeply about their supply chain management strategy. They're constantly seeking to improve, to keep up with increasingly fast product life cycles, reap the competitive advantages of a strong supply chain, and leverage the cost savings that come from an enhanced asset cost structure. Let's start with the most obvious reason: money. At the highest level, inventory in the US accounts for a staggering 14% of GDP, and it's estimated that transportation and warehousing costs average around an additional 10% of GDP. Even looking within a specific firm, supply chain costs and activities such as inventory holding, transportation, order management, supply chain financing, and related IT technology account for about 25% of the average corporate budget. If we were to include the money spent in procurement, that figure rises dramatically. This becomes even more complex when moving from our canned soup example to a more sophisticated product, like a car. Remember, value is added by each partner in the supply chain. So for a car, you would have a producer that creates custom grades of steel and aluminum for engine and body panel production, a cloth manufacturer that produces raw fabric for the seat manufacturer, and a maker of high-tech components used to create the sound system or engine modules. By the time these components arrive at the assembly factory, the majority of the direct costs are tied up in the procurement of these components. Comparatively little money is tied up in things like assembly methodologies and labor costs that the vehicle manufacturer can actually directly control. However, the brand name manufacturer is responsible for setting the retail price of that vehicle. Any savings they can gain by removing inefficiencies and cost from this very deep supply chain gives them a greater ability to be more cost competitive for the consumer. This may seem obvious now, but it was less so in the late 1960s and early 1970s when American auto manufacturers dominated the American car market. Meanwhile, in Japan, it was in the midst of changing the way they related to their suppliers and began partnering with them to find better, cheaper, and more efficient ways of doing things. Over time, Japan developed such low-cost products that they were able to storm the American market and steal significant market share. This is a great example of where sophisticated supply chain management turned into a major competitive advantage. It spawned a revolutionary change in the way we look at supply chain management, operations management, sourcing, and even quality management. Another major reason that companies focus on SCM is due to the rapid innovation and product life cycles in many industries. This kicked off most notably with the rise of fast fashion retailers. Before the rise of these fast fashion retailers, apparel brands would have three major selling seasons every year. Clothes were bought by consumers, first at retail price, and then were increasingly discounted until sold through. In today's world of fast fashion, designs can go from drawings to the retail floor in as little as 6 weeks. This keeps customers coming back, discounts low, and their margins high. The key to making this work is speed. The speed involved means that more activities have to happen in parallel through design, production, revision, and demand management. This is an area that is ripe for supply chain managers to optimize, and is one of the many reasons that fast-moving and innovative businesses often seek consultative advice on thinking through alternatives. The pace set in apparel retailing is now present in many industries. Think of all the rapid launches of new smart luggage colorways or the yearly mobile device cycles. As these trends were emerging, trade barriers were falling, and geographies were honing specialized manufacturing skills. Another way to think about speed in a supply chain is that it often produces a competitive advantage, which is part of what has elevated supply chain to being a strategic function. If a company is the first or best at meeting evolving market needs, they often have an outsized share of the market. Similarly, supply chains can contribute to and even drive competitive advantage in the form of resiliency, particularly following a disruption. Finally, let's look at one more key reason that companies care about supply chain management: leverage. Savings and improvements within procurement and supply chain operations drop straight to the bottom line. In a business with an 8% gross margin, saving $1 in supply chain costs has the same effect on the bottom line as increasing sales by $12.50. Cost control and discipline has a highly leveraged effect on a company's profit and loss statement. Similarly, improvements to the supply chain management practices of a firm often have a high impact on the utilization of their assets, like plant and equipment. Even small improvements in this area have a highly leveraged impact on the financial metric return on assets, a key performance indicator for corporate managers and stock market valuations.